Welcome to Invisible Machines, a podcast where we explore the expanding world of AI agents and conversational technologies. I'm Josh Tyson, co-author of Age of Invisible Machines, a best-selling book all about the agentic approach to automation and the pursuit of organizational AGI. I'm joined every week by Robb Wilson, CEO and co-founder of OneReach.ai. Robb and I wrote Age of Invisible Machines over the course of many conversations that are a lot like the ones that we have on this podcast. Robb has spent decades researching and deploying conversational technologies, and Invisible Machines is where we share big ideas with fellow AI insiders. We're continuing these conversations in partnership with UX Magazine because attention to experience design is paramount to the proper deployment of AI agents or invisible machines. Back in the early days of generative AI, there was a lot of fear about companies using the tools to get rid of employees. Instead, we're seeing large corporations drag their feet on adoption, while consumers are readily using these technologies to increase their own productivity or pursue their own personal goals. In this episode, we're joined by Harsha Gowda and Nitin Bhudia, respectively the CTO and Director of Innovation at Getronics. Bringing decades of experience with enterprise-level technology, Harsha and Nitin join us to discuss the risks that organizations take by failing to embrace the initial phase of artificial incompetence that's required to move forward with artificial intelligence. As we talk about in this episode, those early failures with automation often seed the velocity that's required for companies to transform their operations and avoid being run out of existence by faster-moving entities, whether that be individual consumers or employees or direct competitors or some yet-to-be-identified threat. Full disclosure, Getronics and OneReach.ai have partnered on numerous enterprise AI agent implementations. In this episode, we're really excited to be able to share some of the things that you can only learn in those trenches. So enjoy this urgent conversation with Harsha Gowda and Nitin Bhudia of Getronics. Invisible Machines is produced for UX Magazine in partnership with OneReach.ai. Named a leader by every major analyst group, OneReach.ai's Generative Studio X platform was built specifically to facilitate the no-code orchestration of AI agents. GSX is trusted by global giants like PepsiCo, PwC, Deloitte, and DHL, but anyone can experience the level of agent orchestration we talk about on this podcast through interactive demos at OneReach.ai. Now, on with the show. Harsha, Nitin, great to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Josh.
Yeah. And Robb, a pleasure as always seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
I think one of the most, I don't know how surprising, but one of the more interesting things that we've noticed is, as generative AI kind of burst onto the scene, there was a lot of discussion, and it seemed almost like an existential threat to employees that, businesses were going to quickly use these tools to automate away people's jobs. But what we've seen happen is something quite different. It seems like businesses are kind of slow to adopt for various reasons, and then consumers, they don't have as many things to worry about in terms of using these tools. So they're just starting to use them for all sorts of things. We have employees using them within organizations, whether the organization knows it or not. And then, there's examples where consumers could use these tools to destabilize pricing. They could use AI systems to continually scan for the best prices and, start a pricing war. There's all sorts of ways that consumers could intentionally or accidentally use these tools to completely disrupt business. You guys work with a lot of businesses that are sort of approaching AI and trying to make sense of it. Do you feel like they are thinking of it in these terms, or are they just kind of consumed in trying to figure out how to fit it into their business operations?
Yeah, like another way to say it is, it seems like there's a lot of businesses worried about offending customers and employees by adopting AI too quickly. And the question is like, is that their demise?
Yeah.
Because it's not in reverse. It's not shared by employees. Like customers and employees are not afraid of offending businesses.
No, I think it's what I call corporate dilemma. I think the corporate, when you're part of a corporate structure, you're thinking from a corporate point of view, not an individual point of view. And most of this, especially in the UK, this predicament that they have, just like everything that is new, it's driven by fear, lack of knowledge, and everybody has a different level of understanding, at least when it comes to this topic. And one of the aspects of it, if I take a specific sector, industry, automobile, let's take automobile, that specific sector has gone through transformation at least last 150 years. Automotive sector is going through transformation from the day it came from sociological transformation to psychological transformation to cultural transformation. Cities were created because of, and that's one specific industry which has gone through that level of transformation and that long, and now something, another disruptive or capabilities that is coming in, and we are telling the automotive industry, your industry is going to change. It's not going to be like what it is. For them, what the heck were we doing last 150 years then? You're coming and telling us.
Right.
And to the point that Josh just brought up, retail, if you look at that industry, the transformation that has gone in that industry is 35 to 40 years. From 1995, that entire e-commerce supply chain completely changed from the pricing structure that you just talked about. But before then, for the last 100 years before that, it was kind of similar. If I had to sell something, I had to go, take it and go myself. Or ship it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you mentioned cars, because they used to sell cars that blew up, that like people caught on fire, but they kept selling them, right? Because they understood that this was a risk that you had to take. You couldn't do that today. It's like, and even with like AI today, governments are already trying to apply governance over companies' ability to use it. They're not worried about consumers nearly as much or employees using it. It's like they're so worried about the threat of companies abusing it that they're getting ahead of it, but that's stifling almost like the destruction of companies, because now they're so afraid to adopt it with so many regulations in their minds, the safety component that they may find themselves on their heels. And it's an interesting comparison because what would have happened to cars if they had to be completely safe as they are today back in the day?
Ralph Nader, I think you are thinking about.
Yeah.
What was when you said that?
I mean, it's a cycle, isn't it? It's really, going back to what you just said, Rob, in terms of companies' hesitance of adoption. I think outward-focusing AI towards their customers are definitely tentative, right? Their customers have got a certain user experience, they've got a certain way of interacting with a company, and bringing in AI is an unknown, and they don't want to degrade that, right? They want to obviously uplift it. And we find, Harsha, you and I talk to a lot of customers around customer service type of AI use cases, and we find that there's a lot of unknown in their head. There's a lot of learning curve, lot of fears, a lot of misconceptions, conceptions, perceptions, and all these kind of things. So there's definitely tentativeness on the adoption towards their customers. Internal AI, agentic AI that will help me every day as an employee to write an email, to put a PowerPoint together. There seems to be more openness in that, right? Because it's something that will not affect the bottom line. It will not affect the P&L, the revenue, etc., etc. So we find customers usually look inwards, for adoption of AI, and then kind of go outwards. I mean, I'm generalizing, of course. There are some companies there which are really bold ahead there, and their DNA universities, their DNA is to reinvent themselves, innovate, continuously innovate. Then you've got the traditional sectors, like they produce, I don't know, car parts, or they produce food items, or they produce, we work with all kinds of spectrum here, Harsha and I, and the extended team. Yeah, their focus is a little bit different. They're more tentative kind of thing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example, just one example. On the OneReach platform, we've got a solution called Doctor. A head of a big hospital in Latin America, in Brazil, he went with his son to America, and he interacted with Doctor, and his son was ill, and he had to interact with Doctor, and he found such a great experience. He took that experience and that whole perception of what AI can do for them in the area of hospitals and being that front door concierge, and took it back. And now they're talking to us in terms of trying to adopt a doctor within that hospital, right? So
Right.
you never know how people interact with things. People interact with out of pain. In this
Yep.
case, people and they just see how they can adopt it. So yeah, it's different angles. That's trying a long-winded things, different angles to it. But yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense what you're saying. Like the, doctor abstracting a doctor, or doctor abstracting the bureaucracy of the medical system, where doctor is a part of that bureaucracy and part of that load, but it's the bureaucracy abstraction that is most valuable to people, which just kind of goes down to like maybe the end of paying lip service to customer first interact. Like we come to this world where people talk about customer experience being so important and then not actually caring or doing anything about it. Now we're getting to the point where if you don't, you'll be abstracted. In other words, if you don't create a better experience for your customers, then your customer will create it for themselves and they'll use AI to do it. And now where does that leave you in the end, right? It's this same kind of idea. In the case that you're giving, it's the organization providing the better experience. But if they don't, what happens is the person that is traveling will eventually have their own AI that abstracts that organization themselves. And that's a new idea, right? We've never had this idea where if you don't create a better experience for me interacting with your company, I'll create one for myself.
It started with democratization of a lot of things with open source, and now there are enough tools that they can create a lot of experiences and tell. That's why I was saying, as an individual of anybody, using AI for me is beneficial. But when I am in a corporate structure, I'm thinking on behalf of a corporate, suddenly there is this dilemma. Then it comes, whether, if you leave bureaucracy just as take corporate as an organization, as a bureaucracy itself, what is my ROI? Remember 10, 20 years ago, we used to, the Harvard Business Review, why do large IT programs fail? Those days, why do IT programs fail? Is this another IT program? Is AI another IT program? Are we defining it that way? I think that's one of the things. I have seen customers asking, give me some AI don't know what it is, but give me some AI, because they need to tell their board that they are using AI. Do you have an AI roadmap? To what is your AI roadmap? So there is that.
And like AI, as if that itself saves you, because you can just say, I have AI, but really it's AI for what? AI for creating better employee experiences, AI that creates remarkably better customer experiences. That will move the needle. AI for AI's sake, like random acts of AI in your organization is just a checkbox maneuver. For I don't know which, we had a prior conversation, but the what was it? Retire-itis. The idea that the average executive is in their 50s, and the average retirement age for executives is like 55 to 63, and it's like, do I take this risk, or do I just check boxes until retirement?
That was Dr. Michael Greaves that we were talking with, who helped kind of originate the term digital twin. And I think he sees a lot of that as he's working with companies that, the people that are nearing retirement age, they don't want to go out on some big, massive risk, right? And, we talk about it a lot on this podcast, but the first step, a lot of times for companies, almost always, is just to fall on your face. Like, there's not really an elegant way to kind of roll out an AI solution. So it is encouraging to hear that a lot of people are kind of starting that journey internally with employees, because I think it can be a little safer. You have more of a contained audience, and now that everyone's kind of more familiar with these tools, I don't think there's as much of an on-ramp there where you have to explain the value. Like, the value is pretty obvious now. And so if you find ways to let employees kind of take the lead and start creating those experiences, then puts you in a better position to roll those things out to customers. It's like creating a
culture of AI. It's like creating a culture of AI as an objective versus trying to get cost savings out the gate. You're like focused on cost savings will come with a culture of AI internally, not go get cost savings to validate the use of AI. AI is coming. Like, we're past validating it.
Now, see, exactly. I think Nitin has a point. I was about to say something. That's where it goes wrong. We are still the thinking methodology is still cost transformation. What can you do with AI? That is the starting point, which is, again, how a traditional way of doing, especially in corporate structure. If I have to put together a business case, okay, what is my cost to it? A typical business case, whether it is cost specific or growth specific or productivity specific. And if you start doing that, that's where the hindrance is, because this guy is totally the opposite of those traditional way of looking at ROI by deploying. Give me some AI for what? To your point, actually, I think.
The starting of an AI journey of an organization is maybe at this point, the companies that are adopting it are finding that they are ending up somewhere completely where they don't imagine, right? So on the point of ROI, how do you plot an ROI? If you're sticking to an ROI, then you're going to want to get out the outcome. But natural evolution of the project of AI takes you in different directions. Maybe use cases take you in a different direction, different needs. Maybe there's a customer need. Maybe the industry's changing. Maybe there's a new AI. Well, there's always an AI model, right? There's always an new LLM model, which is taking them all in different directions, new capabilities. So just to kind of follow on from Harsha's point on the ROI, I think companies really need to take that as a backseat and really kind of understand what is their core focus, what they want to achieve of it now, and then kind of just go with it, because it will naturally
it's like drug development.
Exactly.
You may be trying to cure cancer, but you might actually cure baldness. Like, that's
I'll take it.
So I think I think that's a really good point, that there's emergent properties to AI, and you have to be open to the fact that exploration is a part of this. That this isn't deterministic in nature. It's not been there, done that. That there's an emergent sort of exploration component to it, and companies are in this exploit mode, right? Where they're like, they found a formula that works, and they're just exploiting it, and they've probably hired a team that's risk adverse, right? That's whole point is to mitigate risk and just exploit that formula for that company. And now they face a world where exploration is key in a culture that is exploit and risk adverse, and now they got to sort of somehow find a way to compartmentalize risk taking inside of a risk mitigation strategy, right? It's how do I create a sandbox here? But I think what's most interesting is that they look at their competitors as the threat. Like if my competitors adopt, that's what will kill me. And that's traditional thinking. But the reality is it may be your customers, it may be your employees that abstract you. It may be a startup. It may be someone who you don't think of a competitor today, like AWS, that disrupts you. Like the disruption's probably often going to come completely from a different place you're used to seeing it. So while you're staring at your traditional competitors and saying, well, it's okay because I'm adopting as slow as they are, and feeling comfort in that, and but that might not be where the threat is coming. If that makes sense. And
no, absolutely. Look, the adoption rate in Europe, I mean, I just come from Berlin today, and the former vice chancellor was stating, in Europe, less than 12% of the enterprises have adopted AI or some capability of AI so far. I mean, it's the slowest of all the four, let's say US, Europe, China, and India. Let's just say those, just for this conversation. But the pace of at least thinking about doing that, I think Europe is the slowest of all those four.
I wonder how that relates to the adoption of consumers and employees. I bet you consumers and employees adopt just as fast as everyone else. And it's only the companies that are like, it's,
100%.
You know what I mean?
It is. It's like you said, it's bureaucracy context. EU's, not to bash EU, but I think why it is the slowest is, number one, their structure. And also they are very, very cautious. And in Germany, is an example that he was telling in the agentic AI context. He said, guys, every year we are losing 500,000 employees retiring. It's an aging population. And within next 5 years, or within next 6 to 7 years, they are going to lose 5 million of talent from the working pool. And the only way for them to catch up with that is to find solutions like this, unless, they open and bring 5 million people from all over the place. And their strategy is, how do we, because it is an aging population, and the only way for them to adopt is this new technology, and is really betting on the only way we're going to do this is to create these new capabilities through AI. Because they are not, it's a very aging population, slow growth. And he said he's a baby boomer.
Yeah.
But with all the next generation that they came, they know how to produce it, but they're not practicing it.
Yeah. It's this illusion of the things that made you strong will continue to make you strong. You guys are talking to companies and they don't see this coming.
They don't yet, but I'll give you an example, Nitin. I'll do this if you don't mind. And then let's take telcos, for example, Rob. Take every telco. Take all the biggest telcos in the world. And to your point that these big companies who know what to do, and their telcos are what? They are fundamentals for communications. In not one telco, not Verizon, not BT, not Deutsche Telekom, not Telefonica, not AT&T, not one of them came and figured out what was going to happen with the social media structure or the customer experience layer communication.
Yep.
They completely lost it. They became a regular utility company, and they were just a simple ILEX and CLEX try to connect one point to the other point. And they completely, not one telco came up with an idea of creating a social media structure that somebody else did it.
Yeah. It's such a good point, because if you think about the abstraction that they're going through, right? It started with the telco being front and center. Like that's all there was. You had a hardline phone, you had a phone provider, and that was it. And you were very aware of them. Then we're slowly abstracting them with smartphones and the ability to connect on all these different channels like social media, like, you know, Skype comes along, you know, all of a sudden, you know, our data provider becomes less and less at the forefront. Our phones and our software abstracting the underlying connectivity, and now, but them still receiving the money, going, well, you're always going to need connectivity, so we're fine, right? Who cares? And now SpaceX comes out with satellites that, and you have no connectivity left to those customers. So now no one cares. And your phone is choosing whether to use Wi-Fi or a cellular connection. You're not, right? And you could say that's a form of artificial intelligence. It might be artificial competence versus, you know, artificial intelligence. But it's a basic decision. Your phone's deciding which provider to use. It's already this abstraction, right? And yeah, that just continues. And so now phone companies are like, oh crap, we don't have a connection to employees. And they probably embraced that at first. Like if I'm thinking about it from like, oh my God, like they're not calling me either though. I don't have these costs, right, associated with interacting directly with customers. So now my profits are going up only to wake up one day to find out like, but now I have no connectivity with my customer.
Exactly.
And
they don't, and they've lost the complete intimacy with all the end users. Globally, nobody talks about telcos, telephone companies. They only talk about the things that they touch and feel, whether, you know, Facebook started over to Instagram, to WhatsApps, to, you know, all the things that is communications channels that could be completely missed. Telcos completely missed out. And that's the example. The big guys who are comfortable, and it's going to come and happen anyways. Somebody's going to come and create this this agentic AI that's going to run around everywhere helping, because I would use it myself. But as soon as I'm between corporate, there's a huge gap between corporate dilemma and corporate desire. And nobody knows how to measure corporate desire, because somebody has to say, what is the KPIs? As soon as you say what the KPIs, it's hard to measure desire KPIs for a desire. You have to explain it and take to them. And somewhere between that is, I think, we got to figure out. Otherwise, you know, it's a lost cause for a lot of carbs.
Yeah, one thing you're making me think of is and I know this is different in the UK than the US, where the US you have like your utility company, but there you can like choose your electric provider, if I understand that correctly. And
you can,
yeah, like there's more than one provider potentially, and now if AI is just deciding, right, like it's just gonna pick the best service, right? Like that's it. It's just gonna. So what happens is one day it's a race to the bottom now, right? Like truly, when AI becomes the consumer, and the question is, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't you have your AI choose? Why? Like you don't want to spend your day like studying the current rates. So, you know, all it takes is one provider to make it easy to switch, like programmatically, and an AI is going to be constantly playing providers off each other on your behalf. How long would it take consumers to adopt? Like if that AI existed today, how long would it take consumers to adopt it? You know,
yeah. They're gone.
I'll be on it. I'll be doing it.
Yeah,
it's saving my it's putting money in my pockets, right? So, and it brings a better experience. But I think you make a great point. On the flip side, you've got these monolithic companies with monolithic processes. Then comes something like a concept of AI, and trying to adapt the way you've worked for sometimes decades, years, definitely. And then this disruptive technology comes in and it offers you a different way of working on paper, and it offers you all kinds of new capabilities. That change culture is huge for some companies, right? It's massive. Whereas take the other earlier example, Rob, where you mentioned you do not know where your competitor will come from. Look at Amazon, online store with the advent of internet.
Right.
I can easily see some young Billies, young guys creating companies where their task force from day one and their processes from day one are built around agentic AI bots.
And they're so automated from the get-go that from a commoditization standpoint, they're already cheaper. They're not carrying the bureaucracy
exactly
with them, so they can offer a better price. And,
absolutely.
And you're like, oh man, now we're late. So there's the threat, right? And the idea of awareness, well, AI awareness is fast. As soon as they put their prices online, AI will find them.
Yeah.
And it's not like us where I have to tell, hey, by the way, did you hear this new electric company's cheaper? And then you tell a friend. Like this slow word of mouth that tends to drive business adoption, gone. Word of mouth between AI, instant. It'll be like stock trading, how it's moved to algorithms, like
quant.
Instant. Yeah. Instantly from 1 second, everyone's on your system to the next day, half your customers are gone.
Telecom's really interesting too, because I can't when I think about my service provider, I've been with them forever, but it's just because when I met my wife, she had a cell phone on that provider. Like I have no emotional connection to it. It actually works poorly at my house. So sometimes I wonder why I even bother sticking with it. But then when I see the commercials, like Rob was mentioning, like Super Bowl commercials, you see all these telecom companies advertising during football games. And it's so weird because I can't think of something I have like a less of an emotional attachment to. And if there was an AI, if I didn't have to sign these long contracts and there was an AI that could just bounce me between providers based on where I was so that I would get the best service, like that would be really cool. And I'd never have to actually deal with all the hassle of setting up those accounts. So it's easy to see, like in a way, it's like telecom's kind of ahead of the curve, right? They're kind of already abstracting themselves a bit because to your point, Harsha, like they didn't seize an identity or a different sort of framework for existence when there was opportunity.
No. There will be a concierge AI somewhere that will orchestrate all of it for each one of us, I think. Josh, don't worry. I think it will come. I think from the corporate, we and Nitin were discussing, if I have to define today, I think it's an AI scramble. That's where we are. I think people are trying to experiment what is required, and slowly they need to move from, because there are a lot of things, hodgepodge of things that's happening, where very few people really understand what AI means at different layers within the corporate structure. Because AI in an operational industrial sense is totally different than AI at a customer experience sense. All are important, but there are different gigs for different entities within the organization in the corporate structure. I think somewhere we need to move away from this scramble. I think it'll take some time towards experimentation where you do POCs, POVs, and all of it. And there was this in the seminar that I attended yesterday, or a conference. What was it? Around 80% of the POCs that they in the last 1 year, at least in Europe, have failed.
That's such a good point. I wanted to bring that up because I think failed on the basis of ROI, probably, but and maybe that's, so let's just say that for a second, ROI is the wrong way to measure. Maybe we throw that out the window and we say velocity should be the way you measure, which is how many AI projects did you deliver, failed or not, and that velocity now matters. And ROI is irrelevant, except to say that you're getting better, to prove that you're learning, right? It's just a measure of whether you're learning and growing. But at the end of the day, velocity should be the mark of I just had a conversation with a company about this where the team was organized to go and basically they want an AI agent for every employee, right? To just start helping employees be more effective. And the team that was assigned to do this by leadership was asked, to kind of go out and put a plan together for this. And the first thing they did is start coming up with use cases, right? And saying, what are the top use cases and ROI opportunities?
There you go.
And credit to the leadership. They came down and said, no. Like, stop. We don't care about that. What we care about is having that you guys create a platform that allows us to accelerate the deployment of generative AI solution as quickly as possible. So I don't care about the ROI of the first 3 use cases. What I care is how quickly our company can deploy these solutions. I want velocity. And I'll worry about ROI as a secondary. Like, once I have velocity, once I can deploy at scale and there's a culture, I'll find good ROI up. Like, that will happen. But I want you guys to focus on finding a platform that can increase velocity over my competitors, not look for those. So they completely switched their strategy from look for the top ROI opportunities to look for the ROI, look for the opportunities that we can do fast.
Yeah.
Regardless of ROI.
So I have a great use case for that, Rob. We've been working with a organization which is sending field agents out to fix things out, and sometimes in very remote areas. And we're a user of OneReach, and that fast iteration from scramble to acceleration, from scramble to experimental to acceleration, it happens literally within one call, within 2 hours, right? You have subject matter experts because you need them, because they're the ones that know the ins and outs. They know the pain points. They know these kind of things. Long story short, we came out after a 2-hour call. We started here, again, to my earlier point, but in this 2-hour time frame, we created 3 use cases. We started from something completely different, created 3 use cases along the lines of just let's spin our wheels. Let's see where we get to. Let's see where we get to. Next. I mean, with all good quality input and output, it wasn't just kind of trash in, trash out. And we ended up with 4 use cases, presented it to the management, and that then spawned another 10 use cases because it just started all kinds of fireworks and all kinds of neuron connections going off in management's head and saying, hey, can we do it for this? Can we do it for that? And that accelerates.
It's like experimenting.
Yeah.
It changes that. It's like now you're into the world like drug. You've got to experiment. Like, will this cure cancer? Will this cure cancer? Will this? If you're beating yourself up every time you try something and it fails, then you're never going to cure cancer. You have to be like, it's that attitude. Like, no, we didn't fail 1,000 times. We found out 1,000 ways not to do it. That's got to be the attitude, right? It's that velocity is success, period. Now it's fine. We didn't pick the right use case. Who cares? But look how fast we can test. So that's the win, to your point. And now they're like, okay, 4 to 10. Okay, what's 10? Now let's try 20. And then 20, let's try 30 use cases, right? Now they're talking. That's the answer. But yeah, if you did that 4 and said, oh, the ROI wasn't very big, that failed, stop.
Yeah. Yeah. But you need that DNA in the company, right? So, I mean, Harsha and I was talking earlier saying interviewing process should now involve whether employees have some kind of level of AI intelligence, right? It could be at a basic level, depending on the role that you're playing within the organization, or it could be at a advanced level. But it's almost like, when we're being interviewed, we're being assessed for cognitive skills, for problem solving skills, for communication skills. Now you can add AI. I'm pretty sure there will be AI as part of your persona as an employee, right? So that's one level. Second level is then the tech that delivers that fast iteration. You can't have, I come from a tech background. You can't, and we both do, Harsha and I, you can't have tech not allowing you to do that fast iteration. You need
Yes.
very fast, quick turnarounds. And then, because we find, going back to the enterprise world, we find visualizing the results is so much more than just drawing it on a whiteboard or,
Right.
conceptually just trying to explain it. They can see it. That will then just kind of spin and spawn other ideas. So what I'm saying is that it has that whole level of layers that an organization is going to need, an enterprise is going to need, from the employee with the right skill sets and the right mindsets around AI, all the way down to the platform, the tech, that can deliver these fast use cases and spin them around, right?
Yeah. Harsha, your point, like, so people stand up and say, 80% of these failed. And I still think they probably did on both metrics. Like, my guess is if you said, okay, how long did it take you to launch it? They'd say like 8 months. And you'd be like, okay, like when you're talking 8 weeks, now we're talking like, that's probably still failure, right? But that's probably not what they were talking about when they said they failed.
No, they were not, honestly. Look, I don't know whether you know Faulty Towers, Rob.
Faulty Towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, with John Cleese. Yeah, I know Faulty
John
Towers.
Cleese. I don't know, Rob. It feels like corporates are like Faulty Towers. I think Nitin and maybe Josh is laughing too, actually. If not for the dime customers, we would be doing very well. Anyway, it's Faulty Towers is, everything is a problem before you even start. That's what most of the corporates currently, the structure is like that. We have to get over that. At the C-suite, I'm pretty sure everybody is saying, what is the AI? What should be our AI strategy? And they have to present something. They're going to present something which is, I don't know whether it is consumable or not, because at least they need to get over it. For sure, one of the things that will help is that generational gap. I think the next generation, let's say from, I don't want to use the cloud native, but I'll just use it. That when they are in that corporate structure, it will completely change. They will be talking totally different. What is the success criteria in this? Sydney Opera House. In our days, was Sydney Opera House a success project or a failure project? Because it was 50 times or 100 times over the original budget, and it was still completed. But do you define that project a failed project or a successful project? Same thing with Channel project, Nitin.
Yeah.
It overran by 100%, but is it a successful project or a failed? So that definition of success, whether you are looking from ROI point of view or velocity point of view, is that understanding is very important for corporates at this point in time, because this is
almost like
of them.
Yeah, it's almost like if customers come to Getronics, right, and talk about the ROI or picking a use case, it's almost right at the gate, you're almost on the wrong track. It's, hey guys, how do you help us increase our velocity and speed of delivering AI solutions at scale, right? It's help us create a platform, whether that be our team organizationally, like within our company, human, or whether it be technology, it's both, where we can get to a place where we're able to deliver these things at speed, which is it's just a different problem than, hey, we have this point solution or this use case. Let's see if we can automate this thing. How do you get them there? Like, what is, like, a lot of times, maybe by the time you guys are brought into it, the decision's already made to automate some use case, right? And it's gone down the organization to someone maybe in charge of that use case. So they don't care about the broader picture.
Not yet. Yeah, now you're right, actually. By the time, you're looking at it, you're specifically looking at a problem, a use case. And I mean, the even if you deploy that, the output of that is is you deploying AI for those kind of things is useless. The capability of the capacity of AI is exponential, and it's recursive and it's fast. Bigger the scale, better it gets. But if I'm doing use case by use case, it's I don't even know whether to call it AI or just an automation step that I was doing it.
Yeah, we call them random acts of AI.
But that's what it is.
That's a good one. I'm going to use that.
That's what it is. Random acts of AIs.
Yeah.
I think those days from when the world went from geocentric to heliocentric. People did not believe that Earth was not at the center of the universe in its sun. We got to revolve around.
Oh yeah, interesting point. That they're the center. Yeah.
Right. That they are not the center anymore. There is something else, and that the impact is big. And you got to remember it took maybe a generation. I mean, I don't know. Okay, either it was Galileo or Copernicus. I don't want to quote wrong guys there, but they are the ones who said, "Guys, we are not the center of the earth. There is something else there." That's what the center of the world of the universe is. That shift needs to happen from this corporate centric to consumer centric or customer centric. That's going to happen there, because that's where it's going. Because consumers are adapting AI capabilities faster than the corporate structure is even coming up with.
And this lack of thinking about a platform, a culture, a strategy for deploying generative or agentic AI solutions at scale. I've done it with you guys. I remember one of our first use cases. I'm not going to call them out, but it was very use case driven. It was very narrow. They applied their own old school software, and the argument would be from their perspective that it failed. The argument from our perspective is, look how fast we did it. What are you talking about? Look how fast we figured out it wasn't going to work.
Yes, isn't it?
And then when it came to learning, right, and taking the failures, knowing we could fix all the things we figured out were wrong, they didn't have the stomach to go back and go, okay, now let's tweak it. It was nope, this failed, it's over, cancel.
What it is, they sit and wait for somebody else to do it, and then they don't
start
want
over and relearn the same.
Yeah. I think, when we just back to your previous, and I think it's a great point, when the evolution of enterprises in their thinking of adoption of AI, it's very much in one of three categories, right? Category one, they've got very specific use cases. Hey, Getronics, help us execute those use cases. Category two, there's a big, strong push, as Harsha said, within the C-level. We need an AI strategy, so let's go out and find vendors that know something about AI, and let's help them to form our strategy. Category two. Category three, interestingly enough, is when AI has failed with another vendors that you, Rob, may know very well, on the Magic Quadrant. They come to us and say, we've had an AI journey. It's failed for whatever reason, because it's gone too long, or it's not been executed well, or whatever it may be. And they come in and it's almost like shopping for another product, right? They're looking for another AI partner with that AI software platform to deliver what they want. So in category one, where they come with the use cases, we always try to get them to think big, right? Understand, you want to do these couple of use cases, but let us look at the bigger picture. Where do you want to take this? Where is this going, right? Is this just simply about, do you want to uplift the user experience? We worked with a car company about trying to improve the user experience of a motorist breaking down, okay?
Yep.
In that moment, you've got severe amounts of stress for a motorist. Either he's got his family in the car, small kids, or he's, on a business trip and he wants to get to a meeting, an important meeting, and he's stuck on a highway because he's got a flat tire. There's a serious amount of stress. how can AI kind of read that and deliver the fast solution? So thinking big and then delivering against those use cases. And often it is very much, as you say, you try, you error, you try, you error, you try, and ultimately come out of it. In the second one,
no,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you touched on something I don't want to forget, that's so important, because if the success metric is flawed and the ROI, like number of use cases we automated, percentage of people we got to fire, if the internal team feels like the project's a failure, then their natural instinct is to cast blame away from themselves to whoever, the vendor, right?
Yeah.
So now they're churning platforms for no reason, because the platform itself wasn't the cause; it was the approach. And there's such dysfunction that comes from assigning the wrong ROI or the wrong analysis of things like ROI, that the internal team no longer gets to take a win and say, wow, look how fast we learned this, let's go to the next thing. They're immediately in a defensive position where they're fearing for their jobs because the project's deemed a failure. Because the ROI is not there. Sorry, I just it just connected with me. Like, it's not just simply that internally they failed, but it's what that does to the psychology and the culture of their internal AI team when you're calling them failures. Like, what do they do, right? Do they sit there and say, no, we failed? Or do they start casting blame like that,
well, it's
me.
It's a combination, right? Because a lot of organizations, you come with internal employees that are almost against AI. It's that thing where they're against it, then they start to, they're against it, then they kind of start to turn as a believer, then they adopt it, and then it's their idea, right? And we're finding that this on that first 1 or 2 points. So you're already on the back foot, right, Rob? You get into an organization, you're trying to convince them with the power of the solutions that you can produce and spin them. One trip up is used sometimes as an example. I'm not saying that these are all enterprises. One trip up is used as an example. You've got early adopters. So we work with, for example, manufacturing companies who have the spirit of failing, right? Otherwise, how would they get to, run their very profitable businesses through trial and error?
Yeah.
And they've already got that mindset. So when they come to AI use cases, their employees have that DNA of trial and error. Okay, fine. We do this use case, a little bit failed. We know it's not perfect. Let's spin this and let's go into a different direction.
This is so fascinating, because I think, because we hear this a lot. There's like a lot of like, you got to be willing to fail, and everyone's like, yeah, but no. And the answer is like, yes, but no. Because once you change the objective to velocity, then you don't need to fail, right? What you're basically saying is, once you change the objective from ROI to velocity, and you say, well, look how much we learned, how quickly we learned it, and how fast we're getting these projects out, you're not accepting failure. You're embracing the success of a new metric, versus trying to accept the failure of a bad metric, if that makes any sense. And maybe that it's sort of switching the objective allows us to switch the mindset of like, no, we want to win. Like, it's hard to tell someone not to want to win in a competitive environment. We're like, no, you just got to win on a different level. Which, to your point, is instead of like, instead of being willing to fail, be willing to fail on your old metrics and set new metrics, but win on those. Like, if your velocity is slow and you're not learning quickly, you are failing, and you should do something about that.
I think, Robin,
it's fascinating.
We were talking to Dr. Greaves about digital twins. You said something interesting. You mentioned that where digital twins are concerned, there's often this like overemphasis on fidelity, on getting the most high resolution representation of something possible, when really maybe all you need is like a Minecraft version of it.
Right.
And in AI, it's true too. There's like this overemphasis on the intelligence. And so we've talked, I think, as a group about this before, but like artificial incompetence is sort of what we're describing. Like that is the first step. It's being incompetent.
AI, artificial incompetence.
Yeah, but if you revel in that step, if like Nitin, you mentioned like a manufacturing company that's already kind of has this mindset of knowing that it's okay to fail because it gets you closer to succeeding. Like if you kind of jump in that hot bath, before you know it, you've reached artificial competence, and then you're on your way to actual artificial intelligence. So
it's this idea that what is the velocity? What is the vector of the velocity? It's going from artificial incompetence to artificial competence to artificial intelligence, like the speed in which you are moving, knowing that you have to start with artificial incompetence. That's where you're going to start. And it's the speed in which you're moving. It's almost like, knowledge to wisdom, right? Same idea. There's like a vector you're moving against, and that vector is your progress towards actual artificial intelligence. And the idea that companies can skip the artificial incompetence and the artificial competence, right, to say, this is worse than my current system, this is as good as my current system, now this is better than my current system, to say, no, I don't want to pay for artificial incompetence. I don't want to pay for artificial competence. I only want to pay for artificial intelligence. And so I'm going to set the bar super high right out the gate, to say I need to automate, whatever, one full role of my company entirely, not 10% of it, right? For this to be successful, you'd say, well, yeah, that's artificial intelligence, but we got to start with artificial competence. And you were mentioning this, you guys were mentioning, both of you were mentioning this in a past conversation. It was artificial stupidity, but I think it's the same idea.
Exactly. That was Thomas Sowell, I think. The reason I think he was mentioning artificial stupidity is as fast as we are going, the inflection point has already happened. I think the judgment day is about to happen, and people need to realize it's going to happen. He was talking about, as fascinating as this journey is, a lot of people do believe, the people that we talk to, the customers, AI is going to solve all the complex scientific problems. They believe that. But they believe that's what it is, and they think AI is only there to solve these complex scientific problems.
Right.
And then when it comes to their ecosystem or our ecosystem within, corporate structure, moving away from ROI now, I think that's the fundamental big shift, I think, culturally, that the C-suite have to make now, right? If they have to be successful.
Yeah.
Is the culture, and before we go to the culture, is the data ready? That example that Nitin was talking about for that roadside assistance, they don't even invest, or we are unable to invest in getting the data ready so that the output of it, the velocity of either the failure or the success, is our corporate structure allows the data, however disparate, however structured, unstructured it is, of different variations of data, operational to, in the context of digital twin, the logical representation of lot of data that a corporate holds, operational data, customer data, marketing data, physical data,
the
logical
system
data.
twin, yeah.
Right? I mean, that people who are organizing themselves at least at a data integrity layer to make sure that, guys, I know we're going to come, why don't we create this and get it ready, are the first ones who will see success.
Yeah.
And a lot of organizations, they just think that you just buy it, deploy it, and then it just runs on. That's why I think there is a lot of scrambling of AI that we were talking about. AI scramble is only because they don't know what they're going to take it and deploy it on what.
Yeah.
They're kind of lost there, although they believe it is capable of looking at, DNA structural molecule and the vitamin, in the sector of health and in the sector of pharmaceuticals, in the sector of that. There are a lot of things that is happening. The genome project that you just gave an example at the beginning of the podcast, and the speed at which the calculation needs to happen. that everybody is it in comp. But internally, as soon as we come to, guys, what is it that we need to do? How do we structure this within your landscape of all the things that needs to happen? Where do we go and make it happen? It's still quite nascent.
Yeah. I think something we were talking about before, I think is really relevant here, which is, this let's call it this use case myopic, approach to adoption, the random acts of AI.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing is that people usually go to like, what are the things my current systems can't or don't do, right? And when I think about that, I think about conversations I've had with many folks around reverse engineering, reverse black box engineering, which is something that AI is very capable of. And it's this concept of if you abstract the system, right? If you focus on abstraction of your existing systems, not looking for opportunities to do what your current systems can't do, but doing what they do and then attempt to abstract those systems, what ends up happening is you end up in this world of AI where you have this reverse black box, reverse engineering of a black box, right? Which is, if like from an AI standpoint, if I know the inputs and outputs of a mainframe, right? If I can, as an AI system, like let's say the AI is, you replace the input from the user interface of the mainframe to an AI that inputs it. So you abstract the input and then you abstract the output. So I get the results of the mainframe through AI. With enough inputs and outputs in the AI, without even understanding how the mainframe is programmed, it can eliminate the mainframe. It's not recreating the mainframe. It just has enough samples of input and output that it no longer needs it. I think of a human. If I said, hey, we have a new customer, enter this into our CRM system, into Salesforce. Okay, great. They entered it in. It's Acme Company, right? And then 10 minutes later, I say, hey, is Acme Company a customer? That person will just say yes. They won't go access the system, right? Because they registered the input, right? And you imagine, since an AI can represent all the inputs, it can know all the inputs and outputs. If you cover the inputs and outputs, you can replace the system without the system ever needing to be actually reverse engineered. Black box reverse engineering is like it's a thing, right? But I think AI puts this on steroids, and you think, well, what is the cost typically to an organization of removing this like the reason they still have a mainframe is because of how expensive it would be to remove it,
because
right?
it is when very few people understand anyway. They are all gone. People who did, they're scared to touch it.
They're in the 60s and 70s, right? So they have this mainframe sitting in the middle of a room, and they have one 60-year-old, 70-year-old on call if it goes down, because he's the only one who knows COBOL or whatever it's programmed in, right?
And even he doesn't know how it works, so they can't replicate it. But now you're saying, well, don't just abstract it, change the inputs, have the data go through AI and come out through AI. And at some point, in many cases, you'll be able to reverse engineer what's happening, either through ML or just through it understanding and manipulating and creating a formula based on enough sample data of input and output to say, look, it doesn't matter if it's the same algorithm inside the black, as long as the output is 100% accurate. If it can start predicting the outputs with 100% accuracy, which you have the mainframe still there to ensure that happens, then you remove the mainframe. No one ever explained how it worked. You never needed to know how it worked. The AI reversed it. And so I think like these use cases of abstraction can be far more valuable to companies than looking for these artificially intelligent solutions that do the things your current systems or people can't do. Because that's just, kind of reaching for the stars. You're asking to fail, I guess, which is fine, but as long as you're willing to, right? But if you say, I'm going to try to cure cancer, but you can't fail.
Exactly. Well, at that, I think that, look, I mean, that's even the fear factor is not because they don't know what it is. A lot of people don't even know how the plumbing works in the house. They don't know how to fix
exactly.
right? I mean, how many people can explain how electricity works in the house?
Right.
No. I mean, very few does actually how the
Yeah.
light comes in. But this fear factor is there. Like I think, like you said, the adoption of agentic or AI machine capabilities or machine-to-machine capabilities is happening at democratic level at people because they are used to it. Most of it, whether they want to design a house, whether they want to ask for a painting, they want to create a text or an email or do their expenses, not without doing, just looking at it and then a bot did it for them. All of it is, they're fine with it, but somehow when it gets into the structure of corporate, there it becomes, what is your data? So those framework, I think they are unable to crack yet, at least in Europe. The numbers are staggeringly, evident. Less than 12% of the European enterprises are on the path of AI at this point. It's very slow.
I wonder, I'm starting to see these abstraction cases come up, and I think they're a really interesting place to go, to say the use case isn't to automate a human out of a job, or to do something that we can't do as a company, like predict churn. But you go look at a use case as just abstract this old system, create a new interface for inputs and outputs. The entire goal is so that no one opens that old interface. That's it. The abstraction is the goal. And to say, now that we've abstracted it, we've taken a huge step forward in eliminating it, right? Now the UI, it's just a UI abstraction, right? It's now all the inputs and the outputs are going through, like, that's a win, because now we're on a path to eventually eliminating the system and replacing it with an agentic system that is going to be far smarter, far cheaper, far easier to maintain. And you never had to actually understand how the system worked. I don't see very many of these days. I don't see very many folks thinking in this way. I think they abstract certain parts of it, or they leave it up to the vendor themselves, like a ServiceNow or something that says, oh, we've created a version of our UI that is a conversational layer, but essentially, like, what company is going to abstract themselves, right? If you're trying to eliminate the underlying thing and you're asking the company that's
no chance,
that the company that suffers the most from it being abstracted to do it, you're like,
I mean, a lot of our context, that's spot on there. A lot of our context is just around reproducing, trying to do the same but better, right? If you're working from step A to step B to step C, how do I, let's put an AI shine on that, but let's keep it more or less the same, because the thought process is so ingrained that we've been doing this for years, so it must be done like this with AI. And I think you make a very, very great point to say that if we can imagine a world in AI that can take process, can take workflows, can take how things are done today, abstract it at real high level, and kind of almost redevelop it, re-engineer it. You used the word before about re-engineering the black box, re-engineering the black box of processes. I think that you've got, in my opinion, you've got a breakthrough of that adoption. Because everyone from an organization that we talk to always use their process, their way of doing things as a starting point, and they're not breaking out to say how we can do things in which they may not need to, because that's potentially our job, right? To come in and to do that. But they are so anchored in the way they do things, it just stops, in my opinion, it stops creativity. And that's 9 out of 10 conversations that I have.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here, kind of circling back, is either abstract yourself or be abstracted. right? The
Exactly.
customer will abstract you. The employee will abstract the software. So abstraction being like, I want AI operating my software systems and my old interfaces. I don't want to be doing it. Replacing them, abstract them first, step one. Replacement becomes inevitable once you've abstracted them. Don't focus on replacing them, focus on abstracting them. And maybe all you gain is parity. Maybe the user experience is the same, but you've already achieved a huge step forward because the old interface has been abstracted. That abstraction in itself is a huge achievement. Feels like these companies are just falling further and further behind. I guess to try to bring this to a close, how do you catch them up? What do like from your guys' perspective, like
it's look, I think it is a part of the journey. And if you look at all the big changes that was consumed in the last 20, 30, 40 years, including the internet to the cloud that came in and the new way of writing applications, although new way of writing applications is for very specific set of, the open source made it completely a different way of, it accelerated a lot of things that a lot of people don't know. Why did AI become suddenly so fast and quickly relevant today is a lot of other things that was happening within the ecosystem became available. Network became faster, compute became faster, data became, nobody cared whether it is structured or not, but availability of data became that. And then new way of writing applications and architecture that made AI to, otherwise it could have happened now or it could have happened. But I think it's the journey that we have to take enterprises through. And at some point in time, it just needs that critical mass of success that they need to see. So I said, oh, okay, it's not just this, it's not just that. But now it is in a confused status because everybody says, me too, I'm an AI. Everybody is saying,
oh my God, I know.
There's
so many RAG solutions out there. It's like, what the heck? And it's all just digital competence. Like
it is, and it confuses.
With no path to intelligence, like no path. It's just a random act of AI. Yep.
Random act of AI, and it confuses corporates, the C-suite, and say, okay, he says he's doing AI, he says he's doing AI. I'm consuming this, I'm consuming this. How many AI do I need? Because without the context.
Yeah, someone in their IT department created a RAG solution. Like, we could do it. Like, it's just shit. Like, oh my God.
Very well work. So we have to weed through that. And that is the phase, I think, that's going to happen in next 2-3 years. Hopefully not more than that. By then, people would have realized the power of it when 5 comes in. Because like you said, the consumer is ahead in this than the corporates.
Yeah. I think the moral of the story is people and companies might think that the path to artificial intelligence from artificial incompetence is by adopting these use cases, these random acts of AI, and that somehow these will all these random things will lead ultimately to a strategy. But I would liken this to the internet, where every department was creating their own web page, designing it their own way, and then imagining that somehow that was going to lead to a unified website and the strategy. Yeah. Like, no, all it led to was having to forklift all of that stuff, throw it all away and start over. And I think to think that these random acts of AI, these random solutions you're purchasing, whether they're bolt-ons to existing products or whether they're startups that just do this one thing and solve this one use case, is a path to velocity and a culture of AI and learning. It's actually the wrong road, and it's creating more technical debt that you're going to have to lift later.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't have a strategy, it's not like, don't worry, you have time, and it's not, don't worry, this will all be useful someday. You're creating more technical debt on top of your existing technical debt. You're adding more point solutions to your already overwhelmed point solution, products, because you're not replacing them, and creating more headwind from actually doing what you should be doing in AI. So it's like you think I guess that's the problem. You think you're moving forward when you're actually moving backwards.
Absolutely. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? Because you've got a lot of software houses, Oracle, who've got their own AI. PeopleSoft have got their own. PeopleSoft is Oracle. You've got Oracle. You've got Salesforce. You've got ServiceNow. You've got Microsoft Copilot. So you're going to create this disparate AI landscape within an enterprise, right? So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Then
we're treating them like apps. We're treating them like the old paradigm.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, the question that we got, Nitin, from Christoph was including to Paul. Remember, it was, what is the difference between Copilot and this and that? Can you show me this? Which one should I use? So,
right.
The maturity level, Rob, is there at this point in time because we come from the world of apps. Let's put it that way. Everything is an app there. They are not thinking this as a machine to machine discussion will happen in a bigger landscape.
Yeah.
Makes everything.
And apps are owned by certain parts of an organization. So if an organization doesn't abstract a strategy for a unified UI across all apps, so to speak, that eventually expires all apps, then they'll end up in the same place. They'll end up with a bunch of apps that are conversational. So they have to create some, I hate to say center of excellence, but some unifying group that creates a platform and ensures a velocity that says, hey, this is a group that supersedes any one app, right? It sits above all of this, and its entire objective is to abstract all those apps and enable those groups to see beyond the app.
100%.
Just one last observation.
I
think somewhere at this point within the next couple of years, there has to be a tipping point, which is going to, whether it's a technological thing, whether it's a mind shift or it's a combination of both, you're going to get that abstraction layer. I think it's a great analogy that you used earlier. Each department is creating their own website in the whole ecosystem, and it just looks so disparate, it's disjointed, etc. I think that tipping point is going to allow all that to come together, right? It's a bit, that whatever that tipping point is, whether it's technological or whatever, it's going to allow that to come together. And then you got to get this halo AI across all these apps, right? And then you have that seamlessly connecting ecosystem of AI and invisible machines. These visible machines are going to go in the background, and they work as workerbots, as invisible workerbots in the background, where you've got your front door Halo AI that's orchestrating everything.
Yeah, I remember in that day we used to say you need an online strategy. You can't. You can't just. You need an online strategy. Now we're saying you need an AI strategy.
Yes.
And I think you guys have pointed it out. They don't know where to go, and it's this abstraction. Like start with not getting out of the paradigm, creating this abstraction objective to get rid of apps.
Yeah, it squeezes a lot of the same pain points, but a lot more tightly.
Yeah, Josh. Remember, those days, when was the first CIO? There was no concept of a chief information officer. Then came a chief technology officer. Then came a chief digital officer. Then came a chief data officer. Then came a chief security CISO. There will be, to your question, when will this be resolved, Rob? When this chief AI officer is named across all corporates, will be
the
resolved.
chief incompetence officer to start.
Yeah,
A new kind of CIO
officer.
That's his learning curve, right? From incompetence to
it's a journey, at least from corporate structure point of view. I think it's unfortunate it is, or maybe that's how it is. But I think the speed, once that critical mass is achieved, will be spectacular.
Yeah.
Well, this was great, guys. This conversation did not let me down. This was fully enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves
Likewise.
too, but I loved it.
Absolutely.
Very enlightening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. A lot
Thank
of
you
fun.
for,
Thanks, guys.
for the opportunity.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us again here on Invisible Machines. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Always remember that you can watch this podcast too on our Invisible Machines YouTube channel. Head over to uxmag.com. We have a podcast page there where you can explore our back catalog and you can look at episodes centered around popular topics. Many, many thanks to our incredible production team here in the US and in Ukraine. Elias Parker, Michael Litvinov, Allison Harshberger, Alla Slesarenko, Vera Pokodkov, and Darina Moskovchuk. Till next week, Owagi.